Going live. Okay, here we go. We're about to start. Okay, are we here? I think we are. Pop out chat won't pop out because it's being really dumb. Hang on. Hang on, guys. 1 second. Okay, hang on. Okay. Bro, why won't pop out chat work? Hang on, guys. This is being extremely stupid. Bro. Okay, let's see if this works. No? Okay, okay, I'll just use my phone. I give up. Is the stream lagging at all? Are we good here? Yeah, let's pull up chat on my phone. Okay, hopefully it is decent. Okay, hello everyone. Hello, Broken TV Corp. Hello, Mate. Nice to see you. Ouija Plays, Tristan, and Crimpy. Hi everyone. Okay, we're good. Yeah, so hang on, let me add everyone on my server. Saying that I did this. Okay. Here we go. Let me get chat pulled up again. There's probably way too many messages. Okay. Hat everyone. Yes, that's not gonna work. That channel art is amazing. Thank you. Yes, okay. Okay, I was already whoa, what was that? He just bit himself. Okay. Okay, this is way too loud. Hang on, guys. It's way too loud for me, at least. Well, for me, with the stream audio being stinky. So, basically, how did you make it so we can see what keys are pressing? So first of all, I use OBS. Here, I'll start sharing my entire screen. 1 second. Bruh. Okay, display capture, yes. Actually, no. How the fuck? I always forget where the hell everything is. No, and yes. Okay. So first of all, I use OBS. You still want the spaghetti and rocks are lazy. I love this. Did you say that every stream? Shit, this culture man. Okay. Yes, sure am. And so... Oh shit. So it's this app called Keystroke Server. Just search up like Keystroke Server OBS, I guess you can do. And then you figure it out yourself. That's really all I have to say. Okay. Hope you enjoyed my tutorial on how to key press. I hope it works. Does it still work? Yeah, guys. Just gonna move around a little bit. Oh shit, I didn't mean to do that. Oh. Okay, so I'm just gonna go through the level normally once, and by the way, my controls are very strange. I like using WSC, so they're really weird. I have like left arrow key is grab, and then like right is taunt. Whoa, that's pretty cool. So I don't even know a lot deeper into mechanics in this game. Okay, that's not how you do it. So I think I get the idea here, so we're just supposed to go down really quickly. Ugh. That is so difficult. You jump with space? Yeah, and move with WSD. Yes, I use key config way too often. Yeah, also like, when I play, like, Untitled Goose Game on Switch, which I do have, by the way, but I rarely have to play it, it's very... It's the weirdest goddamn controls. Why is the audio reverbed? Because I do. Actually, I could show you how I did that. It's like built-in Windows, I think. Hang on. There you go. Brutus, I swear. Shut up. Shut the fuck up. No. I'm literally going... I'm just gonna mute him. For a while, like an hour. Yeah. There you go. So... basically, there's this thing that I have, and there's like sound effects options. I have super bass on, which essentially just bumps up the bass a bunch, and then the mountains, which adds a bit of reverb. I just kind of feel like it. I like how it sounds. Yeah, that's how I do that. You dare oppose me? Yeah, I do. What? Who's watching 1992? Who's watching is 1992? That makes no sense. What the fuck am I doing? Bruh. So this is gonna take many resets. I haven't even got past like the first. Ooh! Ooh, that was good. Almost. Shit. So I'm just gonna like do this normally a bit from now on. Okay, maybe not. Shit. God damn it. Okay. Boop. Me too. Me too, Brutus. Me too. Okay, that's godlike. Shit, how do you keep your speed there? Oh, like that, but not really, because Snick appears. Like, what? Who's watching in 19 BC? Dude, not me. I'm sorry. Who's watching in 1? Who's watching in 6000 BC? Yep, this seems about right. Yep, this seems like a chat. This seems like a chat. This is a chat moment. Oh wait, can't you like grab immediately? How do you like... Yeah, wait, what? Okay, hold up. You can like grab at the start to get like a speed boost, right? Well, it doesn't seem to help too much there. There's a lot of different jumps he has. I like the one where he's like... It's like when he's like kind of starting to dash. Hang on. It's like... No, it's not like that one. It's like... Hang on. He's like... Yeah, that one. He's like, go! Like, let's go. It looks pretty cool. That's one of my favorite jumps. Who is the pooping? Me. Can I mention that the Funny Mic camera truly isn't that bad? Like, literally, no joke, I am using, like, almost the exact model that, like, Jay Schlatt and other people use for Funny Mic. Like, this camera right here, it's the Funny Mic. It's the Funny Mic, and it doesn't even sound that bad, really. It's definitely not, it's definitely not good, but want to be disgusted by a fact, the HUD is tilted by 1 degree. Is it? I don't know. Like, I wouldn't be able to notice that. But, like, in the actual code, it's literally tilted by a single degree. Holy crap. Wally, PS2 game. Not noticeable, but it is. So, like, when you get, like, when you, like, got the code for it, it, like, you know, like, unpacked or whatever, that you notice that. That's crazy. Very annoying, too. Oh, that was a good... Okay, maybe not. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna watch... Hang on, guys. I'm gonna... let's go where it is. There it is. Okay. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna look at the fastest speedrun. Yeah, okay, cool. So, we're just gonna watch the start of this. You did in 3 minutes. Okay, so, okay. Already way too much happened. So, let's just watch in, like, half speed. Okay, so you can get the max speed very fast if you do that. Okay, but not like that. No. Okay, we almost got it. Nope. Nope. No. Dang, I keep trying to press dash. Like, too fast. Dang it. Okay, wait, how do you do that? Okay. So he just already gets to max speed immediately. How? You grab, then jump. Ah, okay, thank you. Okay, I'm not very good at this. Hang on, let's get it back. You know, I kind of want to keybind some things. Hang on. Just so I can easily, like, show and hide things. This is scene 2, because my naming scheme makes no sense. So in this case, it would be... Get better keybinds? Okay. No, by that I mean, like... Okay, hang on. Let's do, like... God, I don't know. Let's make... This... No, how about this? F1 and F2, I guess we could do something with? Hang on. I honestly just prefer the default controls. Yeah, I could see that. I can see how convenient they could be, but, like, I don't know. I just like WASD, I don't know. And that's also why it would be great to have a Switch port of this once the final release comes out eventually. Because that'd be pretty cool, a Switch release. So hide window capture 2. Yeah. And so then okay, so let's see if that works. And then we have display capture down somewhere. Maybe not. What? Yeah, hide. Okay, so then show should be F1 and then F2. Okay, let's see this. Okay, it doesn't seem to work. What? Oh, wait, no. Okay, I just picked the wrong window capture. This is so... my naming scheme for these things make no sense. I can't even understand them. Okay, let's try this. Hey, it works! Okay, so now F1 changes to display and F2 changes to windowed. Okay, good. People modded the game into a Switch Game Maker game. That's pretty cool. Okay, so... So yeah, it seems to work. So let's try and look at this. Okay, I need to just... I don't get it. So he said you grab... Okay, so you grab, then jump. Okay. Okay, here we go. Wait, what happened to the controls? I think the controls just went to default. What the fuck? Yo, what? The controls just reset to default. Oh no, because F1 resets them to default. Shit, okay. I was like, what did I do? Okay, so then we gotta change this again. Wait, F2 and F3. And then F3 and F2. There you go. Okay, now we have to frickin' rebind the controls again. Then you can see how my controls are so goddamn awful. Left, shift, right, pause, enter. Okay. Okay, there you go. F4, F1. F2 restarts the controls? Oh, yeah, it's F1, Okay. Okay, so let's try this. Yeah, that makes you go fast. That makes you go big fast, very fast. Makes you go big. I am in pain, Jet. Why must you do this? Sorry. I just like controls. I just like my garbage controls. I just kicked that. Wait, what? Okay, hang on. Okay, so... What? How? Okay, so... How? Wait, what? Jet bad at Pizza Tower confirmed. Grab, jump, dash. Okay. Okay, I almost got it. Okay, that was so close, I feel like. What? Okay, so if you... How do you get to max speed that fast? You have to, like, go down, or what? Your Monster Lunch. That's a very obscure reference. If anybody else gets that, then you win, Jet James. You just win. You just win, Jet James. It's not really a game. It's just you win me. I don't understand people that play with WASD just fine, but when they try arrow keys, they suck at it. But it's literally the same. But it's like literally the same thing. Yes, but okay. Let me explain this. So if you look at my keyboard display up there, we have like. So here, you basically have access to no buttons around the arrow keys. Other than maybe Control and Numpad 0, but why would you ever use that? And maybe Shift. But, and Enter is also pretty easy to hit. But if you, like these, you don't have access like anything. But this, you have space on your thumb. Shit. And then you have like, because the arrow keys are too close to the mouse. Also that, yeah. This is a certified rotund Randy moment? What? This is a certified disgusting control scheme. Yeah, okay. But then, like, then we have shift with your pinky. So basically, like, the point is access to buttons. And also an easy way to control. Because, like, with this, I have to, like, awkwardly basically shift to the right a lot. Where this, I can easily, like, have my left hand in a comfortable position and my right hand to control the mouse. So that's why. That's why my control scheme is like this. Also, I need to get mouse out of the way. That's annoying. Okay. Okay, I feel like I almost have that. Oh, I gotta be so close. Do you have to go down? Also play the repaint? Is the repaint out, guys? Wait, dude, is the repaint out or something? Where's this? Did I leave the server? Oh, no, I didn't. Did I? No, I think I did. I think I literally left the server. Because I just didn't want to brew it. You have to contribute to play early? No, it's not. Oh, okay. Got it. So I have to, like, add. Do they even have Jet likes poop? Poop? What is he? Oh, thank you. I was wondering. Okay, good. I'm not gonna be able to join it, though. Oh, never mind. I guess I do have a server invite left. Okay, hang on. Because there actually is a maximum servers you can be in on Discord. It's 100. I don't think, like, anybody knows that. Okay, cool. Now we're gonna get a bunch of people here, even though we already have 6, I think. This is a certified Terraria OSC moment. Have you heard the guy that's, like, remastering all the... He's, like, kind of remixing all the, Terraria soundtracks? It's pretty cool. He's, like, it's called, like, Terraria Revamped OSC or something like that. It's pretty cool. Ah! I love those just random screams that happen. Okay, this literally sucks. So wait. Okay, I feel like I'm getting close. Hello, Spring4556. Welcome to the stream. Pizza with poop, best flavor. Yeah, best flavor of pizza. That's exactly what I was thinking. So, okay, I gotta be so close to this. Can't wait for 1.4. Yes, that's all Brutus is fucking talking about. Just kidding, he talks about a lot of things, but that's what he keeps mentioning. He's like, I cannot wait for May! It's like, what is in May? Oh yeah, right, Terraria update. The screens are part of a scream contest Pizza Tower guy made? Seriously? Brutus, speak about Half-Life now. Yep. Sustenance. Yeah, that's Half-Life. What? Is that Half-Life? Pizza Tower. Pizza Tower. Help. I'm losing my mind. Ah! So what, are those like actual like fans that just recorded themselves screaming? Or did they like find scream sound effects? Like what was this contest? Was it just like whoever makes the best screaming sound gets into game? That's a really good way to get people to make stuff for your game for you. Just tell them to scream. Well, now since I think about it, the majority of them would probably just be like, shit. The majority of them would just be like, oh! But, you know how it is. You know how it is, you know. And is my camera still good? Yeah, it still is. Okay. So yeah. God damn it, hit continue. They just found the screens on YouTube videos and shit. That's pretty cool. Jetvors camera. Yes. I don't think. Oh, okay, you just. Okay, that's still cool though. That's still a cool contest. It's an interesting contest. I feel like I gotta be so close because you gotta like go fast enough where he gets scared and he doesn't like attack you, right? Here, I'm just gonna practice by like. Hold up. So does this actually even fucking work? Am I doing this right? How? How? So he gets, like, scared. Oh, Jetty Boy, just jump over them. You have a point, but, like, I guess, like, the fastest way to do it is to do it, like, the other way. And this leads to the same goddamn place, so, like, okay. Okay, fine. I'm gonna go through the level somewhat normally. Like, somewhat normally. Okay, fine. For now, I'm just gonna jump. Whoa, I just sort of did it. Try dashing and jumping over them or some shit. Yeah. You gotta go Mach 3, so they yeah, that's exactly what I mean by, like, getting them scared. Where they're, like, they don't even know what to do. Like, you're going so fast, like, whoa! And then they're just dead. That made no sense. Yeah, you gotta make them, like, scared like they do there. Yeah. I just realized it pointed to the screen that means nothing to us. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna get my thing up here. Like, grabbing and jumping over them. Okay, so yeah, we still gotta grab. Okay, how? God. You know, I'm not gonna grab for now. I'm just gonna, yeah, did I forget to mention the also beat Deadlock? Oh dang, I haven't even beat Deadlock, that's a GD. Okay, that's a good one. That was an eerie one. That sounded like Scott the Wall, sorta. PP. I wish I could do Stick Challenge, but about 2 months ago my Windows broke and you had to reinstall it. Dang. Well, actually, funny enough, my PC was sort of broken, like the power supply, I think. Like, someone else fixed it for me, but, like, the power supply basically, like, broke somehow, just out of the blue. And so, I had to fix it. It was done for, like, 3 months. The people who made the screams are, oh god, I don't know. Okay, I was like, oh, okay, this is gonna be a long list of people. It was trying to start a Renaissance cascade. Resonant. I just still don't know how to fucking say that. The power supply was gonna open a oh, okay, I get it. It's Half-Life. Okay. I don't know shit about Half-Life, so. I just know the funny. I just know the funny. You're gonna play Minecraft? Okay. Get halved. Dab. Dab. What is happening? Oh, yeah, thank you. Bless you, thank you. You know Half-Life? I don't know too much about Half-Life. I'm not very good with the lore of Half-Life. It's very confusing to me. Especially because it's also connected with Portal somehow. That was actually pretty good. I love how fast you can run this game. Shit. It's very unsatisfying when you just, like, hit a wall. Rather than, like, turn around or, like, something like that. Shit. Like that. Oh god, okay, XLF, calm down, calm down, calm down. People who watch Jet and aren't smart enough to challenge Gordon Freeman. Okay. Holy shit. Okay, okay, okay. Calm down. I'm literally gonna put one of you in timeout. Jesus Christ. Is that a new, what the hell is that email? Okay, now the entire chat is just spamming that guy. Yep. This seems about right. Okay, I'm gonna do a single run where I do not retry. This is gonna be the run. I'm just gonna go through it, no matter how many goddamn stupid mistakes I make. Including that. Okay, we can grab the recess position. Yep, this is awful. Yep, this is me trying to speedrun Pizza Tower. Okay, so nothing. Okay, so I believe no, we don't have to get this, do we? Damn it. That's just like a tutorial for it, basically. Okay, grab him. Grab him. Die, idiot. Okay, so yeah, we have to like. Okay, so we have to wait for him to turn around, I think. Okay, or not. Oh, here. Yo, god damn it. Oh wait, can we just like? Oh, we can. Oh, but now we have to kill ourselves. There you go. Oh, but now we have to kill ourselves. Legit, I need bulb. What have I done? I nuked the chat. Wait, what did you do? Bro, what? Did you, like, time out everyone or something? No? Okay, lit bulb. Oh, that's just a secret! I forgot it's just a secret! Okay, I'm restarting then. Yeah, now I know what to do. Okay, you gotta go up there and there's like a key. Okay, yeah. God damn it. Yep. Okay, well, this is just... I just realized that a lot of pineapples tend to come out. Whoa! That was just Peppino. It made that scream. It's just this lava hurt sound. What? That's weird. Knowledge. Shit, duh. What the hell are you talking about? I don't know. Why is the label on a book? Good question. I don't know. What is... It's the fifth scream? It's just Peppino's scream? Huh, interesting. Do you have, like, what screams are which committed to memory, or did we just, like, look in the files quickly? Like, what scream number was that? Just there. Yo. Die, idiot. No! Okay, there you go. God damn it. Don't insult my soul. Is the title clickbait, or are you actually trying to speed? I was originally trying to speedrun, and I might do it a bit later. But for now, I'm kind of screwed. It's very difficult to speedrun, I've realized. Just in general, honestly. I just grab this man and we'll just... No, goddammit. No! I literally hate this section. Okay, die. Apparently I have a combo. That was okay. God, no, don't go in there. Okay, hang on. Tables. Am I the only one who's using the new Microsoft Edge? Yes, you definitely are. Don't you dare say that anymore, please. Don't you dare say that game name. It's so cursed. Wait, do you have to... You can't pick up keys as the knight? Okay, that's kind of bullshit. I didn't even know that, bro. Because he has to do that animation, I'm assuming, and the knight doesn't have a variation for that. Okay, you can't. Okay, got it. You can't enter doors when you're involved. No. No! Oh wait, I could have done the wall run thing. Wait, who the heck was that? Optic... What do you say? 8. Why was he timed out? Knight only has like 4 animations. Yeah. Yeah. He has like walk, fall, jump, and a slide. I think that's probably it. Yeah, it's like 4, yeah, huh. God, I hate the banana peel! Why? Just why? Wait, is this just a secret? Oh, it's just treasure. Yeah. I timed him out because he's me? Oh. Okay. He's just your alt? Oh yeah, that would make sense. So you time out ugly people. Oh! Okay. Die! You're all done! Woo! Can we talk about something? I hate that those 4, maybe 5 goddamn blocks don't get hit. Those are like the only blocks that don't get destroyed, I believe. And that annoys me. Oh wait, shit. Damn, no, I need to like... Okay, hang on. Don't ask what hell I'm doing. There you go, that's what I was trying to do. What is this? Knight attack. Is this like a... Oh, it's unused. That's cool. Dang, they should add... He should... Is that... That should be added. Like, it would be like a... You could get hit by enemies and you'd have to defeat them with sword. Oh, that's so cool. Oh, hi, in my channel. Welcome to the stream. Here, you've been around here for a while in my channel, so here, have mod. There you go. That's pretty cool. Interesting. I just saw that J.O. said that. What did you just send? Okay, Umba. Dude, Umba. You see that? You can barely even see it. Hang on. I want to see. Shit. There was Amba. I'm hoping you saw Amba. Shit. Bruh. You can't find ender pearls? I don't know. Why do I keep getting recommendations but no notifications? I'm not entirely sure. I do remember seeing you before in my community posts. Boopa, no. I remember that comment. But why is it not low quality? What isn't? Hardopine. I don't want to think about it. Okay, that's actually kind of funny. Hardoween, or like... Oh wait, I'm going the wrong way. I'm going the wrong way. Ouch. I have not even finished this first level and I have 6 minutes left. I'm probably literally dead. Okay, yeah, the Amba meme, yes. Oh, the Amba meme, okay. Why are mods? Why are we mods? Why are we mods always rotted? I don't know what hell. Did you play Noise's Halloween build? Is it free? I thought it was a paid thing. Hang on. Noise's Halloween. Bro, what? You can download this one? I thought it was a Huh. Okay. Good to know, I guess. Didn't know it was, yeah. On itch? Can you play it now? Sure, I'll download it. Yeah. Downloads, I think. Yeah, save it downloads. Wait, is the Christmas one also free? Yo, I didn't even know he had so many free builds. I thought this was like the only free build, the Sage one. What's taking this so long down? Yo, what? I didn't know that huh. Blow the poop. Jay, please. Oh my god. Okay, this is gonna take a while to download. I'm gonna download the Exodus one too, right? When is the next public demo? Please tell me. Just okay. I don't know what's taking these so long to download. Probably because I'm streaming simultaneously. I just realized like. Oh, cool. They provided decorations. For do another multiplayer Minecraft stream? Maybe some point. Yeah, seriously, stop spamming emojis. It's sort of getting annoying. Okay, it's taking ages to download. Hang on, this is this. So I guess we'll just play this one for the time being. Okay, here we go. Go. Oh, okay, now we're here. Yay. They just upload, bro. What is this? This seems very stinky. I don't wanna. What the hell is this? Oh. Captured with light shot. Why'd you do that? When will you play Halloween? Well, it's downloading right now. Okay, I really like that picture. What is your bitrate really low or something? Oh, there he is. Heart attack. And am I gaming? Yes, I am.
If God had wanted me to live, he would not have created a heart attack.
Yep. Seems alright. So yeah, it's downloading right now. Soldier.mp4. Yes, where the heck is this on Red? It's in user phone. Okay. So I just more garbage. Use phone garbage with Lego Man. Calling us Lego Man. Or Lego God. Oh, it's not. What? Who the hell is this? Oh! Oh, they just opened. Let's F1. That's F1. That's not what I want. Hello? Oh no. Did I break it? What did I do? Okay, let's just Alt F4. There you go. Did I do Alt F4? Did I press it? Did I press the Alt F4? Did I? Bro, I give up. Help. What is that link? What? Where does this lead? Okay, I don't know what the fuck is happening. Oh, it's this weird fucking emoji, apparently. Okay. So, yeah, what the fuck just happened? So how about... What is happening? Literally what is happening to my computer. I clicked, like, profile, and it just, like, broke my PC. What? Is Discord dead too? Yo. Like, what? Why? Okay, I literally clicked profile, and it just broke. Yo, what is happening right now? Oh, there you go. Microsoft. Why the fuck is Microsoft Edge opening? I don't get it. Guys, what's happening? What's happening? Yes, please. I don't want to go on this. What? Okay. Okay, I think we're good. I think literally clicking profile on this just fucking broke everything. Let's do it again. Okay, it didn't, I don't think. So yeah. That was... Okay, yes, I will play Halloween. I'm literally getting it pulled up. Oh my god. Oh, what? Play Halloween first. That's what I am doing. Jesus. Cool, Extreme hacked Jet and opened 300 tabs of making Microsoft's Edge. Yeah. Okay, BRB, you need to restart your PC because it's literally freaking lagging every 5 seconds. That's weird. I was lagging like fucking crazy too. Watch this video, it's so funny. Okay. Wow, an ad! And it's not... Okay. I technically just saw the title of the video because I got an ad. And also, holy crap, I've memorized the URL. I didn't even look at the URL. Oh, hey. Literally, oh my god. Who is... This is just Brutus. This is... What? What is happening? Ban XLab? No. Don't ban XLab. Also, why is the wrench next to my name? Because you're mod. I'm not... Because you're mod. That's it. Run it. Okay, fine. Just let me run it and stop fucking messaging me. Ban X. Who is this? Anyway. Okay, here we go. If we do F3, will it... Oh, hey, it does work. Okay, cool. Okay, hello. Boom! Haha, don't worry, I'm not dead yet. Here's an harder version of Pizzascape. This version includes decorations, all made by the Pizza Tower Discord. Hope you enjoyed this short level and happy Halloween. Oh, wait, let me see his idols. Let's see his idols. Oh, shit. Free repaint? What is this? Oh, I don't... Okay, it's just... Okay, noise is much faster. Okay, good to know. It really do be much faster, though. Damn it. This is hard. Oh my god, it's frightening. Just camera zooming in and out. Yes, I am aware I have that feature enabled where it distracts my face wherever I go. Oh, I thought you said, oh, you said Wyatt. Oh yeah. God, oh wow, this is difficult. Holy god. Okay, what's his... I like his crouch jump. There you go. I will carry. Yeah. He also has an uppercut, sadly. I wish it was something else. Although I do love uppercuts. Oh, there you go. Secret? Oh, the secret's up here now, Sammy. Piss Towel prequel. Noise with a Joker mask. Hmm. Damn it. This is difficult. Yeah! Wow, he does get very fat. Oh, come on. Yeah! Oh, I forgot that one. Wait, were those AirPods? What? Oh, dang. Yeah. Hello. I like it peeks around. The peeking around looks very smooth compared to the rest of the things. I don't know why. Brr. Hulk. Do you see the zoo? I do see the zoo. Sorry, I keep like reading messages way too late. Oh god, how do you do that? Oh god. Okay. This looks very difficult. So clearly I gotta destroy, praise Allah my Bruce on jump. Yep. There you go. Seems to jump higher with, armor. Oh god damn it, I still need something. That something is the key. Why does this remix remind me of the Corridor remixes they do for Surgeon Simulator? Because all of them have like guitar and stuff. That's the answer to my question. What? Are those squares? Oh, that's weird. Oh, ouch. Oh god, they just kick you into death. Oh god. No, what? How do you even take care of these guys successfully? No. No. Right here. Okay, so yeah, you have to do the big fast dash. There you go. It's Halloween. After this, may you play the Piss Towel repaint build? Pre-repaint build? I don't know. Jump on them? Oh, you can jump on. Wait, did they just smoke? What? Yeah. I mean, after this, I kind of want to do the Xmas one. And that'll be it. Probably. Oh god, okay, we got a much harder platforming challenge, it appears. So if you just fall, he instantly goes to dead. Well, not dead, but like just landing on his head. Weird. I just realized he has a fork as a knife, as in like a sword. That's cute. Repaint build is just HUD resprite. It's fucking lame. Not worth it. Pistol Presage. Okay, I don't know the emphasis between all these. So wait, how did I get to here? What? Is this it? Oh no! Here we go. Oh, come on, no! Dude, I'm dead. Bro, I'm dead. I only have 425 points. I should have got more stuff. No! Oh god, bro, this sucks. No! Wait, I need 4 more toppings? Wait. Do I still need to collect more? Or just for a rank? Dude, literally shut up. I'm trying to escape. Wait, hold up. How? Oh, duh. Oh god, this sucks. And I'll have to start all over if I lose all these points and all this garbage. Yes! Exit! What?! Bruh! I can't even read all this garbage. You guys are saying not garbage, but like black emoji speedrunning coming. Yes, okay. I'll look at all like the messages you guys sent. Well, I'll still keep looking, I guess. Bro, literally, what are you sending? I can't check it out now. Oh, yo, that was a sick trick. I'm dead though. What? Bro, where's the key? I don't even have the key, bro. I'm dead. I just need to jump right away, like, yeah. Where is this key? Yep. Oh! Oh! There's no way. I'm just dead. What? 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 What's happening? I thought I would die. Bro, that was anticlimactic. You don't die from 0 points? Oh. Well, this is just disorienting now.
Bruh.
What the fuck was that? Wait, what? What was the bruh? Oh! Did someone sub or something? Yo, who just subbed? Did someone just sub or donate or something? Bro, what just happened? What was that, bruh? Yo. Oh, wait. Oh, okay, someone just subbed. Okay. Okay, it was just a sub. Okay. I never get to see what the hell those are. Okay, let me check all my Discord DMs. Okay, we have this video.
Get out of here.
Yep. Chain 2. Oh god, it's this video. Mew and shit. Lasagna Cat. Okay, thank you. Very cool, Lasagna Cat. Who even? Who the fuck? Okay, here it is. Jesus Christ! Okay, let's start sharing this. Okay. Wait, am I even? Wait, why is that in front? It's not in front here. Yo, what? What? What did I do? Yo, okay, that's a bit strange. Bro, what is this? What do I have selected? What? Why is there like a second one? What is happening? Oh. Oh. Weird. Okay. Literally stop messaging me. Okay, great. Who just friend requested me? Sure. I don't fucking know.
It's me falling down the stairs.
What just happened? Pre-repaint build. Jesus Christ. Jet play jump jet. I'm not even. What? I already accepted this. What is happening? And there's the key. Yeah. He's just chilling. I guess download this then. Wait, this is just Halloween! What? No. I'm so confused. Yeah, it's a build, you dumb fuck. I don't care. I'm not gonna play that. Dude. Walking. That's a good walking. I don't know anymore. Okay, I'm just fucking. Oh my god. This is. I forgot how fucking stressful streaming is. What even is Pizza Tower? The game I've been playing this entire time! Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just fucking blocking. If you're just gonna keep doing that, then just no. No. I want the stairs. Dude, I give up. I literally forgot how stressful streaming can be. It's a fucking trip. So, oh my god. To what? To what? Bro. Jet is angry. Angry Jet is a surreal sight. This is like stressful. This is like stressed Angry Jet. To the staircase room. I already closed out of the game. Oh yeah, by the way, here's a okay. Here's a thing that I'm gonna be in pretty soon. It's a collab. It's releasing May 31st. Nobody really knows that other than like Brutus. Then play Xmas. It's way easier. Okay, good. Well, looking at chat constantly doesn't make it much easier, but Jesus Christ. Okay, noises. No, that's not it. That's not it. That's really not it. Extract all. There it is. Stairs MP4 featuring Funny Child Dying. That sounds about right. Please just send me to stairs.mp4. Didn't you send me that? Oh! Okay, no, that was H. Or how to Honey H? I still don't know how to say it. Help. There it is. Who has it? You don't have WinRAR? I don't use WinRAR just because I don't fucking feel like it, bro. I have it, but I'm not give. I sent it to you, now silence. Got it already, I love it. Okay, cool. Can it please extract? Bro, okay, here we go. Yes. Bro, what if we figure out in the end that, like, oh shit, I just realized. Gotta close out and relaunch it. What if we figure out in the end that Pizza Tower is just gonna steal our information, we're gonna be beamed? I'm joking, by the way. Bro. Hello, Nicholas. That is a Chinese flag. Yep. Okay, great. Jet Jams, I shit your pants. And also, after the stream, we can commit the Super Mario Maker 2. Sure, we'll play Super Mario Maker 2 after stream, sure. I'll be fine with that. Then, oh, here it is. Here, no, that's not it. Here, you know what? We're just gonna bean everyone who does this. We're just gonna play pizza. Guys, are you ready for the best game ever? I don't think you guys are ready. Oh god, it's so large. It's, oh god. Oh god, what the fuck? So what size do I have it normally? Let's just see that. No. How do I know what size this is? Bro, what? Whoa. Whoa, that's files. A Game Maker game can't do such a thing. Yo, wait, no way, pizza.exe, yeah, bro, pizza. Incredible, it won't even, oh, that's Explorer, wait, pizza, there it is, okay. So we just gotta, like, dude, I can't. I don't fucking know, just that, that's like good. Choose graphics quality to begin. Okay, so we just gotta downscale this, there you go. Okay. Also, why the fuck is the resolution settings a slider? This was from a game jam about pizza. And it's really bad. It's too good. Sometime in the 1970s. What? Oh, God. Just click to place your pizza. Oh, God. Where's the front door to it, bro? Is it here? Bro, can I stop fucking rotating? There. Give me the pizza. Wait, shit. Okay, never mind. I need to exit. It's way too laggy. I need to go, like, ugly quality. Why the fuck is this lagging it? Yo. Wait, what? Okay, ugly. Stream is chugging along. Okay, here we go. Accept. Click to place. Yeah, these graphics look extra bad, but we're gonna have to bear with them. Okay, great! Pizza go minus 1,000. 1,000 what? 1,000 money? Probably, well, it's definitely money, but like, what if it was like... Okay, so this is garbage, just so you know. What? What? I don't get it. I don't get it. Haha, your stream is running at 3 FPS per year. Holy fuck, it really is. Holy fuck. Good enough. There it goes. God damn, that really is awful. Shit. Well, I guess we're not playing the incredible story of pizza, sadly. The Bat Apocalypse. What about, we got a lot of garbage here. Just play, no, we're gonna play garbage. Let's just rename the stream. Playing garbage. What? No. It's way too big. It's a file to send for Discord, probably. Okay, settings. Here we go. Okay, what? How do I edit the title? Oh, edit. Yeah, literally shut up. Okay, just please. Okay, there you go. I saved it. I think. Did I? Fuck. There it goes. Okay. So hopefully if you reload the stream, the title will change. Shit, the stream is a PowerPoint presentation. I hope it's fixed itself now. I already don't know what to play. Most of this isn't even like most of this isn't even like either it's not a game or it's not streamable. Big butt.
Bro, you just boasted crap. You're gonna learn from your mistakes and move on with your life. Don't forget, you're beautiful. I love you. We are best friends.
Yay. Put it on to Mega. No. I don't want to. I'm too lazy. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 World. What is this? And like stuff over here. Probably paint.net. Yes, I probably should. No, I shouldn't. Then we got Clone Hero. We probably launch like an emulator or something. Got Python. I just like don't even know. There's like this one game. I know it's like this one insane. It's called like Biz. Yeah, I think it's Indie Hawk. What did he just send? Okay, thanks. Very cool. I'm literally crying. Play Source SDK? What is that? How do I open this? Oh, there you go. Oh, no. Okay, file. Recent ROM. So we have like... Oh. So literally we have this... This is Jet James' mascot.
It's me, Mario.
Okay. It's not.
Hello.
So I think the idea here is that yeah, you can do a lot of Taz shit with this. It's very fun. You could probably fuck around with a hex editor. Here, hold up. Let's try and do this. We're gonna make a Taz of Mario 64. Can we just record? Can we like record? No. Okay. New. Okay. So let's do like, so we have all these buttons we can press. What the fuck is the difference between R, L, and L, R? What? Okay. You still want spaghetti on the rocks? I definitely do not. I'm sorry, but I don't this time. I've passed. Okay, AX. What? What am I doing? Okay, so let's just like play it. What did I do? Oh god.
Mario.
It scared me. Wait, so let's just go frame by frame. Frame. Yo, what the fuck? What am I doing? Okay, so here, let's just like press start here. Can we like start immediately? Okay, so let's see this. Okay, it looks like not. Hello. Okay, so let's go back. I don't know what I'm doing. Dude, literally nobody's watching the stream anymore. This is garbage. What the fuck is happening? No. Okay, what about Disco Hawk? What the fuck is this? Oh, look at that. Okay, so, bro, I don't know what to play. I'm losing viewers. What the fuck? Why do I have this? Why do I have this? What? Music bank. There's nothing. Log. What the fuck? FNAF 5s. Okay. Forgotten Sunday. Oh, I know what this is. Like, right? Maybe I could play that, really. Oh wow, now you're a moderator. Yes, you are. I did make you that. Portal 2 co-op? I have a real question. Question? What? Bro, there's so much garbage here. Tells XOR. XOR. Dude, epic. Where? Where? Great. Why am I... No, I clicked on the wrong thing! You know what? Minecraft, I guess. Timeout ban. No, don't. Don't. Don't do that. Stop. Brutus, did you just ban that guy? Brute, please. No. Join the hive mind of mods. Share one brain cell and abandon the little thought you had. Oh, hi. Hi, Shetport. I actually have no clue what to do right now. Do Five Nights at Candies too. I played that before and it lagged the fuck out of my streaming, so no. Sadly, no. Because my graphics card sucks. I'm sorry, PC, you're cool, but I need to get a better graphics card at some point because it's garbage. Let's play Minecraft. Yes, I am. I'm playing Minecraft. Just please. Oh my god. You're leaving? Okay, then bye, I guess. That's fine. That's fine. Oh shit. Let's turn off the keyboard display real quick. Where the hell is it? Okay. You will not see this. You'll just see, okay. Okay. Just to make sure. I think that's my password. Nope. There you go. Okay, now we're good. Now we can turn on that again. I hate you have to log in so goddamn much to this thing. When is this releasing? Spring. Huh. Probably gonna be just as successful as Minecraft Earth, aka not successful. Let's see how bad it runs. Yeah. Yeah, let's see how bad it runs. Can't wait to see how bad it runs. Can it please opt out? Wait, what? Oh, I thought I said opt out. Installation here. Yeah, we can enable that. Why? I have the Minecraft Dungeons beta. Seriously, that's pretty cool. BRB. Okay. God, I don't know what to do anymore. Yo, you have hacks, man? Why do you have hacks, man? Because I have hacks, man. Yeah. Oh, is Brutus gonna host a server? Oh boy, this actually might... Okay, then here. Here, I'm gonna... Open widget. Hosty. Come on! So, Brutus, are you gonna start a server? Brutus, tell me if you're gonna start a server. No, the chat broke. What? I think the chat broke for me. Oh, no, it didn't. Yeah, it didn't. Okay, we're good. Okay, finally, it's actually launching. Brutus, I need confirmation. Are you going to host a Minecraft server or not? It's in. Jed, are you stupid? Yes or no? Both. Hang on. Brutus. Okay, I'm just gonna DM him on Discord. What the hell is this? Okay, great. It's great. I don't know what the hell this is anymore. Brutus. Oh my god. Dude, we're literally losing viewers. Oh my god, I... Watch video. I already clicked on it. I don't get it. Oh, you're in it? Oh, okay, fine. The dollar. Where are you? Oh, nice. That's cool. Ah, okay. Number 6, the dollar. Okay, got it. Interesting. You're number 4? Oh, okay, thanks. Jet, he's BRB. I know! But I thought he was BRBing to start the server. I give up. I'm just gonna end the stream. Hang on, I'm gonna change the title. Stress. Yeah, I'm so stressed. I completely forgot how stressful, you know, whatchamacallit. Can I make a 6 video? Okay, thank God. Thought I could, and I thought I would like broken the goddamn video. Okay, hope you enjoyed. I guess. Hey, you're gaining viewers. Oh shit, I am. Oh yeah, I am. I still don't care though. I'm just gonna end the stream. Honestly, I think it's the moment I renamed it a Pizza Tower. I just like people started coming back. But okay, I hope you enjoyed. I'm just gonna end the stream here. Yeah. It was pretty fun, I guess. Bye.